Hey, everybody, welcome to the Addiction Unlimited podcast, where you get to learn everything you want to know about addiction and recovery. I'm your host, Angela Pugh, co-founder of Kansas City Recovery, life coach, and recovering alcoholic. To learn more about me, you can listen to episode 0 on your podcast app or find us on the web at addictionunlimited.com. Hello, my friend. Welcome back to Addiction Unlimited. I'm your coach, Angela Pugh, and today we're diving into something that touches so many of us, often without us even realizing it. Codependency, control, and the seductive illusion of being needed. Here's a question to sit with. Do you find yourself constantly putting other people first? Do you say yes when you really want to say no? Do you feel guilty when you do something for yourself? Do you lie awake at night replaying conversations, wondering if someone's upset with you? Maybe you're the person everyone comes to with their problems. Maybe you're exhausted from always being the strong one. Maybe you pride yourself on being selfless, on being the person who's always there. But secretly, you're running on empty and you don't know why. If any of that sounds familiar, today's conversation is definitely for you. Listen, today's conversation is definitely for me, for sure. We're going to explore how codependency masquerades as love, how the need to be needed is often a clever little form of control, and most importantly, how we can find freedom through personal responsibility and emotional independence. And let's start with the hard truth. Codependency often feels like love. It feels like caring, like devotion, like being a good parent, partner, or friend. But underneath that caring exterior, there's something else going on, something we have to talk about. At its core, codependency is when your sense of self-worth becomes entangled with another person's emotions, choices, or behaviors. You feel responsible for fixing them or saving them or keeping them stable. And here's the kicker. You need them to need you. And here's where it gets uncomfortable. When you're codependent, you're telling yourself you're being selfless. We're helping, we're sacrificing. But let me ask you this. If someone doesn't want your help or doesn't take your advice, how do you feel? Does it frustrate you when you sit on the phone with your friend and you give them solutions and they don't do what you tell them to do? They don't take your advice. Do you feel frustrated, angry, rejected, anxious? Because that reaction is a clue. If you were truly acting out of pure love and generosity, you'd be able to let go of the outcome. The fact that you can't let go of the outcome reveals the hidden agenda, right? We're trying to control the situation to manage our own anxiety. And most people think that they'd recognize codependency if they saw it. But the truth is, it's happening in tiny moments throughout your day, and you might not even notice. So let me paint a picture of what this really looks like in several different situations. Let's start with morning. Say you wake up and you immediately check your phone. Not for your messages, but for theirs. Did they text you good morning? What's their mood? Like you're scanning for clues about how they feel so you can then figure out how you're going to feel and how like your day is going to be based on their emotional state. Or let's say you're going to go to the gym. You're getting ready to go to the gym, which is something you look forward to. But then your partner seems a little off. Maybe they're a little quiet and you ask, are you okay? And they say, I'm fine, but you don't believe it. You cancel the gym, you stay home because if they're not okay, you don't feel okay. Your well-being just got postponed for someone else's emotional state. Or how about at work? Say you have a coworker who is struggling with a project. You have your own deadlines too, right? But you spend 2 hours helping them instead of doing your own stuff. Not because they asked, but because you noticed they seemed stressed. So you spend 2 hours helping them. Now you're behind. You're going to be working late, but at least they're okay. That's what matters, right? Or maybe it's your boss. Maybe your boss makes a comment that they're disappointed about the team's output. Even though your work was solid, you take that personally. You stay late, you redo things that were already fine because you need them to see you as valuable, as essential, as the one who saves the day. Let's talk about what this looks like in friendships. Say your friend calls again with the same problem, the same relationship drama, the same pattern, and you're exhausted. Like you're tired of hearing about it. You're tired of talking about it because they never do anything to change it. And maybe you finally had plans to just relax tonight, but you answer the call, you listen for an hour, you give advice you know they won't take. But if you don't answer, you wonder, like, what if they think you don't care? What if they get mad at you? What if something bad happens and you weren't there? Or here's a subtle one. I think everybody on the planet can relate to this, especially not only in friendships, but in relationships too. And say your friend or your significant other suggests a restaurant, right? You don't really want to eat there. You're actually craving something totally different, but you say, sure, sounds great, because their preference matters more than yours. Because keeping the peace, making them happy, not being difficult, that's like your job. Now, let's talk about romantic relationships. Say your person comes in and they're in a bad mood. Instantly, your nervous system activates. What did I do? How can I fix this? You start performing, right? Being extra accommodating, extra cheerful, asking questions, offering solutions. You've just abandoned yourself to manage their emotional state. You don't have to do that, especially grown folks. Like adults can manage their own emotional state. Or here's what codependency looks like in bed. Say you're not really in the mood for sex, but they are. You don't say no because what if they feel rejected? What if they get upset? What if it causes a fight? So you say yes with your mouth, but your body really wants to say no. And right there, you've just traded your boundaries for their comfort. Or you want to spend Friday night with your friends, but you haven't brought it up yet because you're waiting to see what mood they're in, what they want to do, whether they'll be okay with it. Now you're a grown adult and you're asking permission to have your own life. Or how about with money? Let's talk about it with money, codependence. Say you have a sibling that needs money again. You're already stretched thin. You have your own bills, your own stress, but you can't say no because what if they really need it? What if something bad happens? What if they think you don't love them? So you transfer the money and you tell yourself you're being generous, but really you're buying relief from your own guilt and anxiety. These are the invisible sacrifices, right? You're hungry, but you wait to eat until they're ready because you don't want to eat alone or make them feel bad. You bite your tongue during conversations to keep the peace, even when you disagree. You dress in a way that you think will make them happy, not in a way that makes you feel like yourself. You pursue a career path that seems more stable or more acceptable instead of what you actually want. You don't share your real feelings because you're afraid of how they'll react. Here's the pattern. In every single one of those moments, you are scanning someone else's emotional weather to determine your own. You're abandoning your own needs, wants, and boundaries to manage their feelings. You're making yourself responsible for outcomes you can't actually control and believing that your worth is tied to how well you can keep others comfortable. And here's what makes it so insidious. Every single one of these behaviors feels like love. It feels like kindness, like you're being a good person. But let me tell you what it actually is. It's anxiety management. It's control. It's the unconscious belief that if you can just keep everyone else okay, then you'll finally be okay too. And spoiler alert, it doesn't work. You can't people please your way to peace. Here's some other examples to consider. Being the parent who just wants what's best, but can't let their adult child especially, make their own mistakes. Or the partner who monitors, advises, and orchestrates their significant other's life because they care. Or the friend who gives endless advice but feels hurt when it's not followed. In each of these, the codependent person isn't really helping. They're trying to control the outcome to avoid their own discomfort. It's the illusion of being needed. Being needed feels good. It makes us feel valuable and important and irreplaceable. But here's the shadow side of that. When we need to be needed, we unconsciously keep people dependent on us. We enable, we rescue. We don't let them struggle because their struggle makes us uncomfortable. And that's not love. That's control wearing a mask that looks like love. So, if codependency is the problem, then what's the solution? The solution is something called detach with love. And it's one of the most challenging, but most liberating practices you can learn. Anybody that's done any Al Anon has definitely heard this phrase, detach with love. Detachment doesn't mean not caring. It doesn't mean being cold or distant. It means loving someone while releasing your grip on their choices, their journey, and their outcomes. And let's be clear, detachment is not abandonment. Abandonment says, you're on your own, I'm done with you. Detachment says, I love you and I'm letting you have your own experience. Detachment trusts that the other person has their own path, their own lessons, their own capacity to grow even through struggle. So let's talk about some steps to detach with love. The first thing is notice your anxiety, right? The urge to fix, control, or rescue usually comes from your own anxiety. So start recognizing when you feel that urgency rising. Ask yourself, am I responding to their need or am I responding to my own discomfort? I'm telling you, 9 times out of 10, the stuff you do is to make you feel better. It really doesn't have anything to do with the other person. You're just trying to manage your own shit. And practice the pause. We talk about this so much. Pause. Before jumping in to help, advise, or fix, just pause. Take a breath. Ask yourself, has this help been requested? Is it truly needed? Or am I trying to soothe my own anxiety? And if you're going to offer support without attachment. You can care about someone without being attached to what they do with your care. Offer your presence, your listening ear, your encouragement, but release the outcome. The outcome isn't on you. The outcome is on that other person. You don't have any control of them. And set some boundaries. Detachment often requires boundaries. And I'm not talking about therapy speak here. I'm talking about real everyday life stuff. I'll tell you a big one that changed my life was when I started to understand I don't have to respond to every text message. I don't have to answer every phone call, right? I know that sounds simple, but think about it. When your phone buzzes, what happens in your body? There's this immediate sense of obligation, right? This feeling that you owe someone a response right now, as quickly as possible. But here's the truth. There's no law that says you have to respond. You are perfectly allowed to be busy. You are allowed to be in the middle of something. You are allowed to see a text and think, I don't have the energy for this right now, and just not respond. The codependent mind will tell you all kinds of stories about why you can't do that. What if they think I'm mad at them? What if it's an emergency? What if they really need me? What if they get upset? And you know what happens? You're sitting there crafting the perfect response, trying to say no in a way that won't hurt their feelings, editing and re-editing a text message for 20 minutes because you're so anxious about how they'll receive it. All that people pleasing, all that anxiety is exhausting. Sometimes the boundary is just silence, just not engaging, just letting it sit there. This was huge for me. It's the pause, right? Because I always felt, I mean, I am a helping professional, right? It's what I do. I fix people's lives for a living, and I want to fix everything. I want to take away everybody's pain. But when I recognized myself always stuck in this, like I have to respond to every message, every text, every phone call, like it's exhausting. There's no way to have enough time in a day to do that. And sometimes it does feel bad. Like for me, it's really hard with social media because I'll get so many messages. It is literally impossible to respond to all of them. And I don't know, sometimes people send me messages and they're kind of weird. And I don't know if it's just because they're being careless and not checking. A lot of people are doing talk to text and they don't proofread it and it's a fucking mess. And I'm not going to spend 20 minutes trying to read your shitty message because you didn't care enough to check it, right? Like I've got stuff to do. I can't rifle through all that stuff for 100 hours trying to figure out what the hell you're trying to say. Also, I don't know if somebody is drunk, right? Like there's nothing I can do in that mind space either. If you're already intoxicated, I cannot help you in that moment, right? But I still feel that pull and that urge. Like I want to respond. I want to support everyone. I want everyone to know I'm there and I want to be supportive, but it literally is impossible. And I know people will get upset. Sometimes people will send me some shitty messages. Oh, I guess I was bugging you. I guess you don't have time for me. It's like, no, dude, I have a fucking life. Like, I'm not just here on this planet to respond to social media messages, right? Like, let's just be realistic. Putting that pressure on the other person isn't kind either. And that's hard, even for me sometimes to set those boundaries. But it's like, dude, I have to take care of me too. I can't do this for everyone else if I don't have healthy boundaries to take care of myself. I need self care too. You need self care too. You are allowed to have boundaries. You are allowed to put space between you and people and things and situations. You are allowed to care for yourself. That was major for me in every area: work, dating, family, everything. I do not have to respond right that minute. Also, I talked about then you're going to spend all this time like crafting a message and editing and re-editing and whatever. When I catch myself in that space, that's when I really understand I'm not ready to respond because I don't know what the fuck I want to say. And why am I going to respond if I don't know what the fuck I want to say? That's the pause. Then I have to go, ooh, hang on a second. I don't know what I want to say. That's why this is hard. That's why I'm editing and re-editing. Let me take a step back, breathe through it for a few minutes and get some clarity. And when I have some clarity on exactly what I want to say, then I'll respond. And this might just be being an older person too, right? Like everything in the world didn't used to be instantaneous. Like I grew up, like if you called, like we didn't have cell phones. If you called somebody and they didn't answer, they didn't fucking answer. Get on with your life, right? Like everybody wasn't at your beck and call. And I think that's a huge difference now too, is everything is so instant and we have an expectation of instant. But listen, I'm not on this planet to jump through everybody else's hoops. I'm on this planet to have a good life and feel good about myself. And so are you. And it's okay to have some boundaries. It's okay to pause and not respond immediately. You're allowed to do that. When you do need to actually say something, keep it simple. Like, yeah, I hear you. That sounds really hard. What do you think you're going to do? Or, wow, that's a lot. I don't know what to tell you on this one. Or it sounds like you've got a lot to think about. Or if it's like somebody in the same issue over and over, like, well, I've given you my thoughts on this. I trust you. You'll figure out what's right for you. Or I'm not available today. Can we catch up this weekend? And notice in those statements what you're not doing. You're not fixing. You're not taking it on. You're not staying up until 2 a.m. problem solving somebody else's life. You're being honest about your limits. That's all. Also get used to, like, be able to tolerate other people's discomfort, and just like we have to tolerate our own. And this is the hardest part. To detach with love means allowing someone you care about to struggle, to feel pain, to make mistakes without swooping in to save them. It means trusting the process even when it's uncomfortable to watch. When you detach with love, you give the other person something precious. It's the opportunity to discover their own strength, their own resilience, find their own answers. And you give yourself something equally precious, which is your own peace, your own life, and your own freedom. Here's the ultimate truth. You are not responsible for other people's emotions, choices, or happiness. You are responsible for your own. And that might feel selfish at first. It might trigger guilt, but stay with me because this is where freedom lives, right? Personal responsibility means I am responsible for my own feelings. I am responsible for my own needs. I'm responsible for my own healing. I'm responsible for my own happiness. It also means I am not responsible for your feelings, your choices, fixing your problems. I am not responsible for your happiness. You are, right? When you stop trying to control others and focus on yourself, something really beautiful happens. Then you have more energy. You feel less angry and resentful at everyone. Your relationships become more authentic. You discover who you are outside of caretaking. And here's the beautiful irony. When you stop trying to control and fix others, you often become more genuinely helpful because you're responding from presence and clarity, not from anxiety and agenda. So focus on building some emotional independence, right? Develop a relationship with yourself. Spend time alone. Learn what you like, what you need, what you value, independent of anyone else's input. Feel your own feelings. Stop outsourcing your emotional life. Let yourself feel anxiety, sadness, disappointment without immediately trying to change it or fix it. Create your own meaning. Like, here's a question for you. What makes you feel valuable? For a lot of people with codependent patterns, the answer is being needed, solving someone else's problem, being the person someone calls, being essential to someone else's life. But here's what that means. Your sense of worth is completely dependent on external validation. You only feel good about yourself when someone else needs you. And that's a really fragile place to live. So what do you do instead? You build a life that has meaning to you. And what does that actually look like? Maybe it's a hobby you've been putting off because it feels selfish to spend time on yourself. Maybe it's a project you're passionate about that has nothing to do with taking care of anyone else. Maybe it's finally taking that class or starting that side business or writing that book or training for that marathon. Maybe it's spending a Saturday doing exactly what you want to do, not what someone else needs. It's finding things that light you up, that make you feel alive, that give you purpose. And those things have nothing to do with fixing, helping, or rescuing anyone. When you have your own sense of meaning, you stop needing other people to need you. You stop creating your worth out of their dependence. You become a full person in your own life. And that's when you actually show up in relationships as a whole person, not as someone desperately seeking validation through service. And practice self-compassion. Here's something wild. Think about how much compassion you extend to other people. Think about how understanding you are when a friend makes a mistake, how much grace you give when someone else is struggling, how patient you are with their flaws and failures. Now think about yourself and how you talk to yourself. Chances are you're brutal with yourself. I know I am. You are your own harshest critic. You beat yourself up for things you would never judge someone else for. You hold yourself to impossible standards while giving everyone else endless passes. Why? Because on some level, you believe that if you're hard enough on yourself, if you push yourself enough, if you perform well enough, then you'll finally be worthy. Then you'll finally be enough and people will love you. But here's the truth. That voice in your head that tells you you're not doing enough, not giving enough, not being enough, that's the same voice that keeps you stuck in codependency. Self-compassion isn't about letting yourself off the hook or making excuses. It's about treating yourself with the same kindness you've been pouring into everyone else. So what does that look like? Well, when you make a mistake, instead of saying, I'm such an idiot, I always mess everything up, what's wrong with me? Try something different like, oh, wow, that didn't go how I wanted. What can I learn from this? Or when you set a boundary, instead of thinking like, I'm so selfish, they're going to hate me, I'm a terrible person, remind yourself, you're allowed to have limits. Taking care of yourself is not bad. It doesn't make you bad. Or when you're exhausted, instead of thinking like, I should be able to handle this, everybody else handles this, what's wrong with me? I'm just weak. Try like, damn, dude, I'm tired because I'm carrying a lot, right? And it's okay to rest and it's okay to not be okay right now. Or when someone else is upset with you, instead of thinking, I need to fix this, I can't stand them being mad at me, I'll do whatever it takes. Try saying to yourself like, their feelings are their feelings. I can't control how they respond. I can only control my actions. And here's the practice. Every time you catch yourself in that harsh self-talk, pause. Again, the pause, right? We have to pause and ask yourself, would I say this to someone I love? If the answer is no, then why are you saying it to yourself? I do this 1,000 times a day, you guys. I'm shocked at how negative my inner talk is. And I've done a ton of work on myself for 2 decades, right? And I still catch myself like the things I will say to myself are so disgusting. And I have this thought like, wow, would I ever say this to one of my friends? I would never speak those words out loud to one of my friends. So why am I saying that to myself? You've spent so much energy being kind to everyone else. You've been so generous with your compassion, your patience, your understanding. It's time to turn some of that toward yourself. And here's what happens when you practice self-compassion. You stop needing external validation so desperately. You stop needing to be needed because you're finally being kind to yourself. You stop abandoning yourself to take care of others because you've learned that you matter too. Self-compassion isn't selfish, it's survival. It's the foundation of emotional independence. And if this conversation about self-compassion hits a nerve, go back and listen to, I did an episode probably about a year ago, episode 321, Why Your Inner Voice is So Mean and How It Affects Your Recovery or Sobriety, something like that. It's episode 321. It's a deep dive on how that critical self-talk keeps you stuck and how to finally shift it. And I will link that in the show notes for you so you can grab that, episode 321. When you truly take responsibility only for yourself and let others be responsible for themselves, your relationships really can deepen because now you're connecting human to human, not rescuer to victim or fixer to broken. You're meeting each other as equals, each on your own journey, choosing to walk alongside each other, not carrying each other. I swear to you, this is one of the things I think that makes my coaching practice so incredible, right? Is that we really are walking side by side, right? We're not carrying each other. I'm not carrying you as your coach. I'm guiding you, right? I'm going to have some answers. I'm going to see things you don't see. I'm definitely guiding you, but we are walking the path together, right? That's what makes my practice so successful. So here's what I want you to take away from today. Codependency isn't love. It's fear dressed up as devotion, right? It's the need to control disguised as the need to help. Detachment with love is the practice of caring deeply while releasing the attachment to outcomes, right? It's trusting that others have their own path, their own timing, their own lessons. And freedom comes through personal responsibility, taking full ownership of your emotional life and releasing responsibility for everyone else's. This work isn't easy. It will bring up guilt and fear and discomfort, but on the other side of it is a kind of freedom and peace you may have never had before. And here's what I want you to think about. I'm going to give you a reflection question for this week. Ask yourself, where in your life are you trying to be needed? And what would change if you let that go? Think on that for a while, right? As you go to the gym or go for a run, where in your life are you trying to be needed and what would change if you let that go? I want you to think on it, and then I want you to get your journal and I want you to write through some of the thoughts that were coming up, right? If codependency, people pleasing, and emotional burnout are the things keeping you stuck, then it's time to stop managing symptoms and start solving the real problem. This is exactly what we do in personal coaching. We get clear on those barriers that are stealing your peace and we work through them in real time. Because here's the truth. Whatever you're struggling with most, that's the doorway to your next level. And if you keep stumbling over the same barrier again and again, you don't need more information. You need a solution. And that's what we do. We lower the immediate barriers to get to the long-term freedom. That's what this work is about. Stable sobriety, emotional independence, and a life that finally fits you. And you know you can always book a free call with me, addictionunlimited.com/call. That link is always in the show notes. We'll talk real quick about what's going on for you, what the best solution is for you. Maybe it's doing private coaching with me. Maybe it's doing my self-paced online course. Maybe that's a better fit for you or for your budget. There are options, and you can find them all on the call page, addictionunlimited.com/call. Again, that is in the show notes too. I love you guys. And don't forget this Friday, a bonus drop from the Unlimited Life Starter Series. These are the 10 most powerful episodes from the Addiction Unlimited archives to rebuild your rhythm, structure, and emotional peace. So watch for that this Friday. I love you guys. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I will see you next week.
You've reached the end of another great episode of the Addiction Unlimited podcast. Candid and honest conversation about addiction and recovery. Be sure to visit us at addictionunlimited.com to join the conversation and access show notes and links to everything we talked about. Love this episode? Please take 30 seconds to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes to help us improve and give you the information you want. Thanks for listening. See you next week.